This is the Mike LiPetri Show. I think it's just so fascinating how where you become, what you did, and then what made you want to start Lifevac. So a lot of the listeners, for looking into building business, growing themselves, I think that'd be so cool to really hear about in sense of, because what was the business you started before Lifevac?
Well, I think if you look at the entrepreneurial life, right, and we a lot of people we admire in this world are entrepreneurs, right? They went out, made their own way, and I did that. The first time was in transportation. When I was 17, I drove a truck in high school and the air freight business, and then I worked on the dock. I worked at night, and I learned that business. As I went into customer service, I learned sales. So we eventually started our own air freight company, right? So the path of saying I can do that is the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yeah. How did you? What do you mean? Like you were just a driver, and then you just said like I'm gonna air freight company. Like you're just gonna. How do you even know where to start?
Well, I think that what we do in life, if we learn as we go, right? So I learned one job, then I learned another, and by the time I was in sales, I kind of had learned the whole business. And being the person I am, and I think you have to be an entrepreneur, I said I can do this. I can do this myself, right? So on to that path. And over the next 18 years, we built up a huge company. And the real benefit of being an entrepreneur is you're building something that has value. You're not just working for a place. So when you're done, you own the business, right?
Yeah.
So I was able to build it up, me and my partner. We sold it, and I was pretty much retired at around 45. I had established enough that I was comfortable and I could go do whatever I wanted, which is an interesting moment for any entrepreneur because you have that mindset of what else can I do? And that's when Lifevac came about.
With going back to that first business, before we go into Lifevac, I really want to hear about your drive. Like, did you have to save? How did you get the financing? Like, how does someone who wants to start their own business, where do they even go to begin?
Well, fortunately on that piece, I had the kind of the sales side. And so the company that I went to offered me for no money the franchise in New York. My suggestion would be when I started that business, I wrote 3 business plans, kind of a small, medium, and large. One if we didn't bring many customers, one if we brought half, one if we brought them all. And so you really need to be prepared. Obviously, some require money to start up, right? But I think that one of the keys that entrepreneurs may miss is you can't let the kind of the vision or the dream overpower the reality of the numbers. So the first step is to make sure that you can accomplish what you accomplish and take care of your family or yourself. So once we had that and I had the accounts, the company was willing to take a chance on me. So I didn't need a lot of startup money. Now, I didn't make a salary for first, little bit, but that's where you got to save up and be prepared
That was
to
your
go
savings.
into the battle. Yeah, but that was really just to supplement my not having a salary.
Yeah. How did you determine what your bankroll would be to not take a salary and therefore just cover savings?
Well, my uncle told me something, and he said you always need 3 months of backup, and it was about integrity because he told me, if you ever get put in a position in a job where it would jeopardize your integrity, you can't keep the job because you're afraid you don't have the money to live. So I had embraced that. So I had a few months, and by that time I had a little further in my career. I had probably 6 months or a year where I knew I could survive. And he had instilled it in me to be able to say, no, I quit. I'm not doing what you want me to do. And maintain your backbone no matter what without the pressure of saying, I got to do what they want for
Right.
money.
How long were you with the company before you started that franchise?
I spent all through high school and college part-time with one air freight company, and then I worked for another one for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
And then I started my own business.
Which was right around what age?
I was probably 32 when I started my own business.
And built that 32 to like what, 40, you said 45?
Yeah.
40 years old or 45?
No, it was like 45.
Yeah, so like 13 years just straight hustling.
Yeah, and once again, the glory of the entrepreneur. You got to remember, my little brain trick is if you've never signed your own check, you don't know what work is. And I'm not saying people don't work hard; they certainly do, but you have ultimate responsibility for everything. And in that business, I drove a truck to made meetings with billion-dollar companies. And when we started, I remember putting my suit on, going out, making sales calls, come back, change into my warehouse clothes, going out in the warehouse, operating a forklift, labeling trucks, etc. So you definitely have to be willing to sacrifice for the one goal of success.
What was like your lifestyle like during that time period?
Well, I was an older father, so I was able to just really work like an animal. And I think you need to, and you got to be prepared for that if you want to go down this path, and make sure that your life is, the sacrifices you make are okay. Luckily, by the time I had my daughter, I had established the company. I wasn't doing everything, and I was able to make sure I was always there for her meets or to coach her in soccer or whatever.
Did you think that was that something like on your mind in your 20s? Because so many people, they're getting married around the mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, and then having children simultaneously and all. Was that something that was on your mind where you were saying, I'd want to start my business? So did you feel you had to make that choice, or does this naturally occur? Like, what happened?
I made a conscious decision probably in a couple of years after college, and I took a piece of paper and I wrote down everything I wanted to accomplish in life. And then I did a 3-year plan writing down my financial goals, right? So one page had, scuba dive on the Great Barrier Reef, own a house, have a dog, all that. And the other one was, how do I accomplish that? And then I basically took a look and said, you kind of have two options in life. You can say, get a good job, work your way through it. Back then I said, or get a pension, right? Because the goal is to have enough money to go do whatever you want, regardless. And the other way is to roll the dice, where maybe you can get there quicker. If you become an entrepreneur and sell your business at 47, well, then you pick the right path, right?
Right.
Now at 47, I can do whatever I want, not 55, 65. So after I kind of plotted it all out, I said, okay, this is where I got to be to not work anymore, based on like a reasonable lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so that's when I said, okay, let's do this. I can hit that goal quicker than the other path.
And then you just went balls to the wall.
Balls to the wall. You got to go absolutely insane.
What about if you had questions or to knowing where to start? Did you reach out to people? Did you have like a mentor, or how did that operate? So for the younger, for those that are still getting into industries, or even those that are in industries but want to segue out and start their own business, like what did you do? What do you recommend for that?
Well, early on, there's a very useful skill that is very obvious. You have 2 ears and one mouth, so you have to listen twice as much as you talk. If you're talking, you're not learning. So I constantly interviewed the president and owner of my first air freight company. Actually, I was in customer service, and we would be friends, and I would go in his office and talk to him, and everyone was like, what the hell? Why is that guy in his office? So he was someone I learned a lot from. I had one really good sales manager that I learned a lot from, and I had my uncle who gave me that advice, the FU money advice. So you definitely need people that have blazed the path, that teach you what to do, teach you how to sell, teach you how to do things. But the real key, and it's in sales, it's in anything, keep your mouth shut, listen, learn, take a little piece from everyone that applies to what you're doing, put it in your Rolodex, and go forward.
Did you find yourself when you, after 32 years old, now you're at age 32, you got your business, you're building it, did you find that from 32 to say 36, 38, that you were, I guess, watching how much you were spending on your own life to making sure all the money was still being injected into that business, or how were you managing it?
Well, early on, when I was young, I took a trip to Jamaica on my credit card with all my buddies. We went to hedonism, went absolutely nuts. It was so fun. But what I realized when I got back that I had to pay that off for 6 months. So from that moment forward, I never acquired debt, right? Debt is a anchor. So until when I bought my house, but then I just did the math on the house to say you make an extra payment, blah, blah, blah. I didn't renovate my house till I had saved up the money to do that. So the key to me on that side of getting to that goal of being able to live forever is live within your means, don't acquire debt, and, be conscious of what you're spending it on. I mean, I traveled. I did everything anyone could do. I mean, I've been all over the world and, did everything I wanted. But if you stay out of debt, it prevents you from destroying that goal or extending that time frame till you have your entire life to do what you want.
Do you think that from you adventuring out into the rest of the world and seeing all these different places, did that shape any of your views as an entrepreneur?
No, because, it helped you get a vision, and it's a fun thing to do. But my other piece of advice, you got to put those blinders like you see on a horse.
Yeah.
And you can't steal second with your foot on first. Once you put your head down and run, you just get to that goal. I wanted to be the biggest air freight company I could possibly be. You wake up every day and say, how do I do that before you deal with anything else? How do I make my company bigger? That's your first wake up. How do I get bigger? Who do I close? Who do I talk to make that business grow? And nothing can get in the way. There are times where we kind of parlayed into other things, and I could see the distraction eroding our business, right? So you got to pick your path, and then that's it. That's all you do, and you give it everything you got.
So you ended up growing this air freight company. You sell it. Now what?
Well, I plan on playing golf and developing my carpentry skills. I had visions. I would like to build boats. I had built a little one with my daughter, and I enjoy that skill. And having learned that, that path, who knows where it would go, right? But it was two things I enjoyed. And I was able to contemplate that life.
So how does Lifevac come to play?
Well,
how do you have this company that creates a airway clearance device that's life-saving. But how does Arthur Lee's air freight company business owner, sells it? How does that happen? Where's the transition there?
Well, I think, if I go back to my God-wing philosophy, so I had learned how to take, I started the air freight company with 4 people in a closet. We used to put our pallet jack in the floor. We had a fold-up table. It got it up to $22 million with like 70 people.
Where was it originally located?
Jamaica, right by JFK.
Like it's just a small
ass.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
And we bugged the air freight company who was our competitor for like coffee or paper. And the lady was an inspiration because she would laugh at us quite a bit. But so I had the ability to do that. So when I heard of a child, a 7-year-old, who choked to death, and my daughter was 7, the first thing I said is, I can't have her die in my arms. I have to be able to, I'm her father, it's my job to protect her. I found out how frequently people choke to death, 1 child every 5 days, 5,000 a year, 4th leading cause accidental death. Who knew any of that? I always thought it was a freak accident. It barely ever happened. But the reality is it happens all the time. And now I can see it on the other side. Yesterday we had 2 saves. The day before we had 3. We have almost 700 saves now. So yes, it does happen quite a bit. But at that time, I just knew it happened a lot, and that the protocols didn't always work, and I wasn't going to let her die. So, growing up in my era of we fixed our own cars and walls and everything, right? So I'm a handy human. I started to think of how I could save her, and I was able to come up with something super simple, works great. And my first thought was, well, I did my job. My daughter's
You
safe.
created this device.
Yeah. I made it in my garage, glued together, sink plunger, face mask, duct tape.
How long did that take?
Took probably 6 months because, I had nothing.
Right. That was just straight up, like, how many hours a week? Are you talking about like
Yeah.
40, 50 hours a week where you just
Well,
grinding and just trying to invent this?
The first part is I had to research, right? Because the situation in choke emergence is physics. Something's stuck and you got to get it out. So it's not like a medical problem. It's more of a physics. So how do I suck that thing out? What is the way to do it? And the second part was, how do I make it simple? Because I'm going to be scared silly, I'm going to be very nervous. So I wanted something simple. So I started playing with forces and some compressed air ideas and passing some wind over something to create a vacuum. And I come up with a couple things, but they kept getting too complicated, right? Because I knew that you'd be so afraid and so panicked. I mean, since I've done it, there's many times people choke and people just stand. They don't know what to do.
Right.
And particularly if the person's in a wheelchair. So I just started experimenting and playing, and not, I wasn't in there 8 hours a day because I didn't know what I was doing. There was a lot of philosophizing, a lot of studying. I pulled up some research to get the amount of force. There's 2 very good studies that I was able to find. And then I eventually said, I got to dumb this down. Plumbers unclog pipes, right? That's who unclogs a pipe. Not doctors, not emergency guys, plumbers.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, I'm going to go to Home Depot and just look. I don't know how to unclog. I got a snaky thing, but I don't think that'll work. And I saw a little plunger, and by then I knew it wasn't a ton of force I needed, right? Because you usually can cough it out. So that was the beginning of the end.
And then, so how did you have to, like, what? Because you're saying that, okay, you make it and you did your duty, right? I have something that's I'm going to save my daughter's life. But what makes you want to now form another company?
Well, I didn't. And I had to think long and hard on that, because if you are an entrepreneur, you know that you kill yourself for 18 hours a day for 18 years. But I look at my daughter, and I know that my neighbor loves his child as much as I love mine. And I don't think I could live with myself if I had it and his daughter choked to death. How could I be the only one to save my child, right? And not care enough about him and his love for his child. So I just took a deep breath, and I was camping with my daughter, and I looked up at the sky and said, God, give me the strength. And a shooting star went all the way across the sky. Just not a little blip, the big one. So he basically told me, you got to go do this, which was very useful, because otherwise you'd quit. It's way too hard to make a medical device in your garage and bring it to fruition and globally change the world. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And then after that, it was kind of simple, like the blinder method,
Did you went, like, what was the first step you do?
Well,
you have to get IP, correct? You have to get that trademarked.
Well,
right?
there's a ton of things you got to do, which sadly isn't worth much anymore. But the real purpose, the real goal was to save lives. So the first steps were to make sure it worked, make sure it was safe, and accomplish all those maturation of science points, right? So first I tested the force, then I tested the valve, because you can't push it in. So the little plunger has a little vent system, so when you push it down, the air shoots out the side. So independently tested that force to make sure it wouldn't push it in. 300 out, that's perfect. That's what the 800 regulations on all the ambulances are for suction. Then we tried simulations, taking a dummy, pulling stuff out. Then I actually went and pulled the stuff out of a cadaver, and then brought that information to doctors who actually did.
Where do you get a
study.
cadaver? You just
That's the funniest part, and that was Mike Rowe. We were all cracking about it. He's like, you got a cadaver guy? So my buddy, Mike Singer, found a lab, and they said, what you're doing, you come in. So we went in like 5 in the morning before they opened and practiced.
just ask the lab, like, hey, can we just come test some stuff on your dead
I couldn't
bodies?
believe it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It was the most amazing thing. But all along the way, there's been these gobwinks of support and motivation to keep going. So we did that, and then we in background the patent and manufacturing design, because you have to go from a sink plunger glued together and tape to an actual product. So you got to get a mold made and all that. And then
So where do you find the manufacturer? Like, how do you discover that?
the amazing thing about technology that is rotting quite a bit of us, but also has a huge plus, is the ability to research. I was able to find studies from the 70s and the 60s and the 80s, and I was able to find a list of mold manufacturers and injection molding plants and all that. Now, I wanted to make it in America because I'm American, and I wanted to make it last forever. So those were two problems that the business world doesn't really like, but I did it anyway. And I went to a couple conventions and shared the ideas, and we were able to find a mold manufacturer right out here in Brentwood.
What convention are you looking at that you wanted to?
There's a injection molding convention, and
There's an injection molding convention?
Oh yeah, there's a convention on everything. And,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's crazy, but like I said, that's the beauty of this. You know, you can click and look and find and.
Yeah, I remember I did a TEDx talk about the Millennial Advantage, was specifically how technology allows us to dive into the vast corners of the world or the country, wherever, to find answers, information, and building knowledge and experiences to shape yourself for your business.
I think, like, if you could look at my path, and like we were talking, like, if you're a young person, you have such an advantage to pursue something that doesn't exist, to pursue a change, right? Because historically, it would take forever to learn enough to go try and create a solution.
Or even talk to somebody that has mastered the certain.
Well, that's what
right?
you used to have to do.
Yeah, you had to find that person. If you don't find that person, then
they had to talk to you.
Correct. They have to talk to you. Now, in your sense, you have an injection, whatever it's called, molding convention that you can just attend to and register online and attend.
Well, the good thing about that was particularly because we had these rough designs, was getting advice from experts on what you needed, right? What was the next step? And then you take the design, and then you kind of can hone in on getting a mold. We started with one, and that was a big expenditure and scary, and now I think we got like 4 that are running.
Wow. So now you get the molding. What about the IP or trademark? What's the steps for that?
Well, the sad part is the trademark's relatively easy. The patent was probably, I think it took us 4 years.
You have an attorney for that? Just to go, just ask counsel, right?
Yeah. I realized the potential for the attack of it, because it's world changing, which turns into very lucrative, a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to a higher end attorney in Manhattan for my patent. But the problem is Amazon. And you say, why do you say Amazon? Historically, if you had a patent and someone knocked you off, they had to have a presence here. You could go after them legally, right? They had to have a warehouse of people, and they had to distribute, and they had to, you could get
infringement.
Yeah, you could go after them. The problem with now that we have Amazon is China ships it to Amazon, and then Amazon sells to the public. So you would actually have to sue China to claim your patent infringement, which is
good luck.
Yeah, have a nice day. That they would giggle if they heard us say, "Yeah, we're going to sue China." They'd be over there.
But what about Amazon's responsibility? Aren't they monitoring?
Pass it along. They pass it along now.
Are there any federal laws that would regulate how Amazon to basically provide a duty?
Well, we have federal laws that should protect us from the import of a non-registered medical product. But once again, we have to understand that these entities don't obey laws. So they just claim it's something else and they sneak it through.
But why is Amazon shipping it?
Because Amazon gets money to ship it.
That's what I'm saying. But there's federal laws. You're saying there's federal laws, but there's no federal laws that impose a duty on Amazon to regulate and monitor their own distribution, correct?
Well, once again, there may be laws on it, whether you obey them or not. And then if you're going to think you're suing Amazon is that much easier than suing China, it's very difficult. Now, I won't say Amazon hasn't been a little cooperative, right? When kind of contact them and say, hey, this is an illegal medical product, you shouldn't be selling it. Sometimes they take it down. But you're dealing with a behemoth. You don't pick up the phone and say, hey, can you take this medical product?
You're not calling
down?
Jeff Bezos and saying,
Yeah.
hey.
So it's a battle, and it's sad because growing up, as a little inventor, I always said, man, it'd be cool to get a patent, right? Because the cool thing about getting your patent, the real reason you get a patent, at least in my eyes, I don't want to steal your idea.
Yeah, it protects that.
Well, it makes
Supposed
me,
to.
I'm allowed to be a legitimate human being because if I thought of it and I make it, meanwhile you invented it and you got a patent, then I'm stealing your idea. The patent, to me, the best part, it says, no, you did think of this. You did invent this. This is your idea. Forget the protection. It's about integrity to say, I didn't take anyone else's idea. I didn't steal your idea and turn it into something. This paper says I came up with this. It's original, and it's been thoroughly researched that I came up with it. So I'm not taking your idea. I'm not stealing anyone else's idea. This is my idea, and it's original, and I thought it.
How do you protect the Lifevac product? So after because you built it up, I guess we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you built it up, you have this product, you manufactured it now, now it's distribution. Obviously you're on this scale where you're selling the product on Amazon, but how do you protect it from knockoffs? How do you
currently, well, first off, you got to remember, they're very strategic the way they do things, right? They don't knock off things that don't work, right? They let you kill yourself for 9 years, and if it works, then they knock you off. Why knock off? They want product that sells, then they knock it off, no matter what it is. So, but you got to remember, we still had a long way to go from where we left. We had to then get it out there in the public to get data, to make peer-reviewed journals, to make it safe and effective with peer-reviewed science. So as we started getting saves, first year I think 0, then we got 4 saves, then we got 6 saves, just by year. Then we got, I think, 16, 52, 152, and this year I think we saved somewhere around 400.
And that was before, this was just, so it's been like 5 years for public distribution, correct?
A little over, about 6.
And how long was it for getting it from manufacturing?
Like 4.
4 years before even putting it on the market.
Mm-hmm.
From
because I'm making a medical product, I had to make sure it was safe, effective, registered with the FDA, and with good conscience make it. And I made it last forever, which I had to put a little more effort into, because the valve system, I had to come up with it, and that's why why I got a patent, because a regular valve would deteriorate, rot, it would fail over time. You'd have to sell a new one every 2 years.
Yeah, you don't have that.
No, mine lasts forever. If you use it, you get a free one. But that was the integrity of my father, to say, make something that lasts forever and always works, and that's what it does. So from then to here, we were able to get 6 peer-reviewed medical journals. Now, what does that mean? It means we have more medical science than current protocol, and almost most products that are out there, whether it's a drug or anything. So we have a solid book of medical proof that the product is safe and effective.
How did you recruit the scientists? Like to conduct these studies?
The way it works is, now I was blessed to have my sister as a doctor. You do what's called an abstract, right? So she would write up an abstract. Now an abstract is not, because I get a lot of flack. Oh, your sister did it. Abstract is saying this is an idea, right? And what the abstract do is you get it out there, and then someone in a field, right? Maybe it's Nita Shapiro. She's the head of pediatric oncology at UCLA. She deals with children's airways. She's probably a world leader in it. She sees the abstract and says, this is interesting. I want to do a paper, right? So the abstract is kind of the bait. And we were fortunate, we twice were selected as a poster board presentation, meaning it's significant. Right? So they say, hey, look at this idea.
So they see the abstract and then they conduct a study on it?
Yeah.
And then from there, they show the research with whether or not it's a good idea?
Well, then they have to put it to a journal and a board. Peer review means a bunch of doctors and scientists take the information and decide whether it's credible and important and properly done and ethics, and then it becomes peer-reviewed. But that's why peer-reviewed science is the key to progress, right? Because it's thoroughly documented.
Yeah, it's a check on each other.
It's a big check. It's a big check. And if you remember with the vaccine, they're waiting for the peer-reviewed science. So that's the significance of peer review.
So now from there, after you have that peer review, then when can you put it on the market finally?
Well, we had put it on the market early because, unfortunately, around early 80s, you can't test emergency medicine, right? You can do a clinical trial on a drug or anything.
Was
really.
this federal regulation?
No, it's ethics. I can't choke a person and save them in a clinical environment. You can't use people or animals for scientific experiments. So after the cadaver and the simulation, the forces, we put it out there, and as we save lives, we gain data. When you take that data, then you get a peer-reviewed science.
But how you? What do you mean saving lives? But that means the product's out in the market then.
Yeah, man, I had to grab the, you know what I'm saying, and go for it because it's the only way to finish the testing.
So how does now from there? I mean, how many people did you have when you started this business?
One.
Just you. Did you have any other financiers, any investors?
Yeah, a little bit in. I was the guy who runs our company now. The president put in a little, and my friend Mike and my friend Lenny. They didn't necessarily put in. They got a piece for sweat equity, but Mike Punk put some in. But it wasn't so much a huge financial investment. It's a pretty simple thing. It's just the impossibility of testing something that can't be tested, and the faith to take that shot.
How do you? So I'm sure you get tons of haters, people in opposition, people discredit you. How do you balance that? Because I'm sure other people who start their businesses, they're gonna have people telling them like, no, this is bull. It's not something that's gonna be of good use, and stay away from it. How do you balance that?
Well, to this day, the hardest part is, when I try and change the world, people saying, "Oh, you're preaching about your product. That's why you care." Particularly in the people with disabilities, it's one of my passions is because people in a wheelchair may have no option. You can't get your arms around them; they choke and die. So I get accused a lot of, trying to use that and to sell my product, and tons of, why does it cost so much? Because we actually obey all the rules. So
how much does it cost?
The product's $69.95.
Oh,
but everyone forgets it's made in America, lasts forever, covers your entire family, one unit, like all those things that the competition or other people make it expire. You got to buy 3 of them, so you get a free one if you use it. But the answer to the question is screw them. Shoot me with arrows. I don't care. And you go out and on social media you can get clobbered all the time. But you know what? Who cares? I don't care. I'm going to save lives. I've held the baby that we saved. So call me whatever you want. I don't care.
Do you know how many products you've sold? How many of these Lifevac product have you sold over?
We're coming up on 2 million.
Sold. 2 million sold?
Yeah, and we yesterday got us to 600 and got us to like 635 lives. Almost 400 kids now.
2 million. So how did you do last year? What's the projection now for 2023?
To sell? I mean, I'd like to hit between 1 and 2 million units
this year.
Yeah, because
then you're hoping this amount of lives double because that's
right.
more units out there, more lives saved, right?
When I looked at the Congressional lives, it's beyond my mathematical capability because it's not lineal. You don't double.
Right.
Because I made it last forever, the first unit could save a life. It's still out there, right?
Right.
So it used to be about 1,000 we get a life saved, and it came down. But I know if we had the same amount of Lifevacs as public defibrillators, rough number we'd save about 2,700 lives a year, 2,700 lives a year. And that's just meeting the same as the public defibrillator.
Yeah, what's the defibrillator like? How many lives does that save per year?
It's difficult. It looks like from the data I can find about 500.
Five. This would save 5x that you're saying?
Yeah. Well, there's simple reason. One, it's a much more controllable environment, right? You usually got to be eating, right? Unless you're a little kid, you could pick up something.
Right.
So the ability to have it where it's needed, sadly, a heart emergency could happen anywhere, right? You walking in the mall, you're playing golf, you're standing in your bedroom. So, and plus it's inexpensive. It's $69. So we can get them everywhere. They can be in every restaurant. They can be in every school. They can be in every home.
Is this so? What's the goal? So 2023 the units now. Is there like a specific area you really want to try to focus? Is this product tailored based on the size? Like if you're adult versus a child versus a baby.
Well, going back to like my father and the ethics of it, every kid has a pediatric and adult mask, so it covers every age. One kid, so it doesn't matter. This year's focus for me personally, as Mike kind of runs the company, is to finish the disability side, the ADA violation, to get us in the schools where that child who's in a wheelchair has no chance. Look at the choking poster. Don't believe me. Go in your cafeteria and look at the choking poster and read to me how they're going to save a kid in a wheelchair. Go into any special needs facility. Show me how that poster is going to save the kid.
Well, you can do a Heimlich maneuver.
No, you can't. Well, first off, it's not on the poster, right? The person with a disability is not even represented on the poster. And the second part is the wheelchair has grown in sophistication, which is great for quality of life for the person in it. But the unanticipated problem is you can no longer get your arms around them. It's too big. It may have a motor or a computer or a joystick. You can't get your arms around them. So even the antiquated policy that doesn't really work can't be done. They literally have nothing.
Does the device work if you're sitting up? If the person's sitting up in the wheelchair, though? Can that still work?
I had a friend of mine who's a physical therapist and takes care of a really cool young man. I believe he has cerebral palsy. And they did a video on it. And you could see him where he can't get his arms around, right? And then he takes the Lifevac, puts it on his face, pushes and pulls it. And you can see that it's a very simple, non-invasive, non-violent way to save a person that has no option. So that's my goal this year, to finish the mission and provide an option for those that have no option.
When is Arthur Lee finished with Lifevac?
Well, this is the last piece as far as up to the world to make their own decision, because I still feel that it's my responsibility because not enough people know, right? So that's kind of my job. Once that's out there, then it's up to them. If you take care of people with disability, then it's your job to make sure they're safe. And before they dig the hole, I'd like to save 1 million lives.
Million lives.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
And how long has this been now? You said 10 years? 10 years.
11.
11 years.
This is the 11th year.
This is 11 years Lifevac. So wow. That's going to be a milestone.
Well, you've seen the whole saves, and that is my inspiration, because by putting each life up there, you don't lose track of the fact of it a number. I look at Killian's face, I know that his parents and his grandparents aren't destroyed. And I can now look at almost 630 lives that is the case. The gratitude comes from not only saving the life, but saving those people. Your child dies in your arms, your life's over. You cannot completely recover. You can sit, live, and you'll get by, and eventually maybe, have a life. But that's in you forever. All those people don't have to feel that. All those people went back to playing with their child or going to the park. And when I get challenged and, get my brain beat in, I go in there and I say, I can do this. I can change the world.
So how does somebody find out more about this device, or if they're interested in this device?
It's the easiest way is to go to lifevac.net. If you do that, you'll avoid the counterfeits that we're talking about. And my goal is to, in that side, just be careful. These products are dangerous. There's no quality.
Which one? The counterfeits?
The knockoffs.
Yeah.
Because the other problem we didn't delve on is because of the connection, all those tax dollars leave our country. So they come into Amazon, go out to China. They're not filling out a W-2 every month to send their profits back to the U.S. So we're really hurting our country by purchasing these knockoffs. So not only is it a
Right,
bad idea,
you lose that tax revenue. And then what happens? Don't these knockoffs too? Those are shut down. I mean, that's some of the stuff I've seen with other products as well. Is that they'll shut down their business, and then restart and open a new one as a shell just to.
Oh yeah, but here's the bigger problem for the actual company. So we put the science and the investment in medical, and we abide by the rules. They come in and they just start chipping away at it. They don't market. They don't go out and speak. They don't promote it. So they kind of erode the ability for that company to keep the voice going, right?
Right.
So they don't care if they eventually kill the company because then they just make something new. They don't. All they want is to feed off the success. Like I told you, we didn't get knocked off till we started selling, right? Because they have access to the Amazon numbers and the TikTok. So you got a viral TikTok, they look at the Amazon numbers. They calculate when they should knock you off. You're not profitable, they don't knock you off. The second you get profitable, they knock you off, send it to Amazon, put it on the link, and they don't market.
Yeah, so we need something federally that's going to target Amazon, impose a duty on them that makes it responsible, where all those knockoffs that are not legitimate are then kicked off the platform, no?
I agree.
That marketplace.
The way to do it, because the custom side's humongously difficult, right? Because they just change the code. You don't know what it is. You don't look at everything, so they could code it whatever they want. Amazon's really a hub of being able to stop this, right? Because you can search it, and you could have guys like me send
just give you a heads up, right?
To the federal
We're
government.
Lifevac, we're legitimate. These are knockoffs.
And also, if we had the FDA scrutinizing Amazon, because yeah, it's bad to knock it off. Knocking off our medical products is dangerous, right? Obviously, we need as a country to make our medical products here because we had a Tylenol shortage because they make it, and that's insane. Short term, yes. Some monitoring, and it just be cooperation, right? Amazon should not want to sell these things. Amazon should not want to break the law. And that's the solution.
And yours, like some of these knockoffs, I've seen them. I was looking on it before, and you can even look at like going online right now. You can see like some of them are invasive. Is yours invasive? Lifevac doesn't. I don't think so.
No,
not at all, right?
Some of them are, but what's happened now because of our success is
yours. I'm looking at it right now. It's not invasive at all. It's just over masked.
No, that's why I had to invent it. Invasive suction's been around forever, but I would be terrified to try and stick a tube in my daughter when she's choking a 7-year-old, so I invented something that was simple and safe. But on the knockoff side, they just copy everything. They take our literature, they take our videos, so it's tricky to even know if you're buying a knockoff. And they're very good at it, but once again, sadly they're considered cancer. They eventually kill the host by stopping the revenue without any of the costs associated with marketing and studies and personnel. And
I'm surprised, as you said, like to allow parasites like this. I'm surprised Amazon would even be okay with that, with something that's medically.
Yeah,
medically
their
necessary.
regulations say they won't sell it, but once again, this thing, Amazon's a behemoth. Just talking to someone is impossible, right? So we do go to Amazon, and we've had some success through attorneys to take them down. But then they just pop up again,
right?
Different name, a slightly different name, whatever, and they're back. The way to do it would be the inventory side, right? When it comes in or goes out. So it doesn't matter if you're what name or whatever you're popping up of. If that product's in Amazon in any form, it goes back to China.
Can people that purchase the product, or those the families whose children were saved from this device, can they get involved at all
if you see,
to try to advocate?
Well, they do, and we have 4 states now with pending legislation to be in the schools, all brought by parents, either parents who've lost children or parents who have saved children, their child.
Which states?
I don't want to say because we have a stalker, but
Okay.
we are in 4 states pending legislation. The goal is that if we can get it in the schools, we'll protect those disabled students, right? That now have an option while I pursue that other side and an ADA addendum that says now we can do something. That poster is an ADA violation, but we couldn't do anything. So what are you going to do? Now there's a solution. Now it's a problem. Now it should be addressed. But those Lifevacers are all over the country and all over the world. There are groups of people that have lost children that have developed groups and donate Lifevacs. There are parents who have saved children. Our post on Inside Edition has of a family that got their child saved by a Good Samaritan. The video has saved almost 40 people because they agreed and let us put it out there and are an advocate. So the Lifevac Army is the real driving force of this thing, and I'm just a part of it.
Well, you mean, so you were saying before you have a stalker with that. This was part of the haters you're saying? These guys that just determined
Yeah,
just to
well,
destroy?
we have one in particular who is has an agenda. So stopping legislation is really pretty easy. All you got to do is get a question, you know. So we have to persevere through odd circumstances.
Just battling.
Yeah, well, you just present the truth. Eventually, truth will come through. Because the good thing is, it's sadly a very common thing, right? So even now, if there was a school death in New York, it's going to be a problem because you say, why didn't you have this thing, right? It's not uncommon, like something like that never happened, so it doesn't come to light. Very soon, we are going to question a choking death. Why did it happen? Why did you have this simple thing that's $69 that's saving all these people? So the system itself will help drive us to the goal of no. Every year a kid dies in school. Every single year. It's almost 100 kids since I started. Kid died this year. But there will be a year where no kid dies in school. First time in the history of man. And that's another one I can't wait to see.
Well, I love it, buddy. You have a great mission, great goals. So people go to lifevac.net, see more about you. You know, you're a great guy, and I really appreciate your passion. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Well, you know, I'm so proud of you. Just whoever is out here listening, man, when I took this challenge on, you were one of the few people in the political world that came to me and said, yeah, we got to do something. And I will always be indebted to you, and I will always believe in you because you are a man of the people. You're not full of stuff that most of these people are. You said, I'll help you. We'll go. And we went to school together, and I will always know that you are the man. And if you ever run for anything, I'm there.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. We're focused on building you and showcasing all about that.
But people should know the man you are because that always stayed with me because we have a lot of hot air in Washington and local. But you took up the cause and fought, and that's what we need.
I appreciate you. The best, buddy. All
Yeah,
right. Have fun. I know you got to go get out.
Yep. My daughter, I'm so excited.
Have fun with her, bud.
All right.
Thanks, man.